Well, boys, the dry spell, it's finally over. After no new content since early September, today, November 25th, patch 11 or update 11, whichever you prefer to call it, the Reclamation update has finally hit Space Marine 2. And today we're just going to run through a very brief overview of what we're going to be getting within the new update. So real quick, in terms of cosmetic updates, as you can see here, we do have the Blood Angels champion. Now this was added to the Assault class, and honestly, it just looks so beautiful. They did such a fantastic job with this. Now, I do know a lot of people, including myself, were kind of hoping that the Assault was going to get this champion skin. However, thankfully, due to all the recent updates, you can now use your champion skin parts on different character classes. And they even added in a special unique jump pack here for the Assault class that is themed to go with the Blood Angels champion pack. Looks absolutely beautiful in my opinion. I think they did a phenomenal job with this champion skin. But the Blood Angels aren't the only chapter that got some love. We also are going to be seeing the Salamanders cosmetic pack added as well, so we'll take a look at it here in the heraldry. This one is actually very short and sweet. Now you will have to spend a little bit of your currency on this. However, if you're like me, you've had nothing to spend it on since September, and it's just been endlessly accumulating until you've hit that ceiling. So you will be able to buy everything as long as you have at least, I want to say 2,000 coins, or I'm sorry, 1,600-ish. You should be able to buy everything, assuming you already have the standard Salamander pack bot. Or, yeah, the original Salamander chapter stuff. But we do have the Black Vipers as one of their successors, the Covenant of Fire, the Dragon Spears, and of course a fan favorite, the Dark Kraken. So you will be able to get all of them. Along with that, we do also get some unique armor parts. Now these can be used on the majority of the classes. So for starters, we do get, let's pull it up here real quick, assuming we don't lose it again. There we go. We do have the Salamander's helm. Now, there is another variant of this that you can get that will not include the little Salamander's flame logo right there. But if you are trying to LARP around as everybody's favorite friendly neighbors in the Warhammer 40k universe, I don't know why you'd want to take it off. Also, we do have this nice pauldron here. Of course, every time we go to pull it up, it wants to kick away. But we do have the pauldron there as well. And then off on our left, or our right pauldron, I'm sorry, we do have another Salamanders themed pauldron. Other than that, though, the only new cosmetic we got from this will be this little pyre that will sit on top of the power pack. Overall, I don't think it's too bad. I think it looks pretty good overall. And I almost forgot to say, along with the Blood Angels champion skin, you will also receive this particular skin for the chain sword here. Again, I think they did a phenomenal job with this and they knocked it out of the park, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I'll probably be running this on all of my chain swords regardless of not if I'm LARPing around as a Blood Angel. But in terms of just cosmetics that you'll be able to purchase, those were the only new ones that were added. However, we are going to take a look at some of the free content here that was also added in with the update by going over to the refinement and redemption. So as you can see, there has been a whole new host of heroic weapons and also some new armor pieces. We'll run through them very quickly. So you will be able to unlock the Mark 7 helmet, the Mark 6 Corvus Veteran, which I was really excited to see this because I've actually just started playing through Bolt Gun, and this is very similar to the helmet Malum Cato wears within that game. However, I do kind of wish it was missing the eyepiece. It's still pretty cool, though, and definitely better than just the standard beaky helmet, at least in my opinion. I like the ornateness to it. Then we do have the Artificer Mark X, and if you're like me, a Black Templars fan, we even got our own special skin for that. Although I do just want to take a moment real quick and say, Saber, as much as I love all the Black Templar love that they have done within Space Marine 2, there's nothing wrong with spreading that love around to some other chapters. I know we also have some Ultramarine themed stuff. That's kind of a granted, given that they are the poster boys, not only for the franchise, but for this game. But I'm just saying, wouldn't hurt to show some love to some of the other chapters. There's a lot of really cool ones out there that we might not see individual cosmetics or champion packs for. And I think that this would be a great way to include some of those lesser known or other fan favorite chapters that maybe aren't going to see that same level. Plus, we do have the veteran molecular bonding studs. Now, I do just want to say, and this is kind of another thing that bummed me out, all the pauldrons are, again, only for the right side, which we got a little bit of love on the left. Hopefully, maybe the next update, but that is something I would like to see. However, though, these pauldrons look completely fine. There's nothing wrong with them. Then we also have the honorific gem, the Camellia line shroud, the veteran shroud, and then those will be the only new cosmetic pieces. All of these you can earn in-game with the accolade system. Now, moving on over into the heroic weapons real quick, I do want to throw out that this particular bolt rifle skin was also added. Now, I did notice that I had this unlocked on Twitch. However, for whatever reason, it did not transfer over to my game, and I did not realize that until it actually popped up here. Not really a big deal. This one you will not have to spend accolade points towards. You'll just have to use some of your standard credits for it. If I remember correctly, I think it was extremely cheap, maybe only 200, 250. But anyways, let's move on to the new heroic weapons here. We do have Wrapped, which is going to be our heroic bolt sniper rifle, which does have a very low ammo capacity amount. However, if you are nailing headshots, that magazine is going to refill for free. Now, with the test server, I do understand that this particular sniper rifle did some monstrous damage. However, it has been toned down quite a bit to my understanding. I haven't got to mess around with it just yet, but I will be including the patch notes down in the description so you can see all the little nitty-gritty details. I'm just not the best person to cover all that stuff, so I'll just throw it up there. That way you can read it directly from Saber themselves. Then we have the Wrapped, which is the Heroic Instigator Bolt Carbine, which just fires rounds in a higher rate of fire. It is still going to be burst fire. Truthfully, I don't really see the reason for this particular one. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the Instigator Bolt Carbine, but maybe this will just allow for some overall faster DPS, and I might end up running it. We'll take a look as we experiment around. Now, one that I am kind of excited for is going to be Retribution's Request. This is the Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol. As you can see, shooting an enemy with an Elite Scream status stops it from calling for reinforcements. But what interests me is that headshots kill in one shot. I will be very interested to see how that plays out in the game. To me, it almost sounds a little too good to be true. I do understand that this one has a much lower magazine capacity and also less ammo in the reserves, but I am looking very forward to giving this a try. Also, we did get Chains of Duty, which I think this is going to be a really cool heavy bolter to try. But yeah, this is the Heroic Heavy Bolter, so your perfect parry window is going to increase by 50%, which is actually very generous, and traditionally the Heavy does struggle a little bit with melee combat. But what's also really cool about this is anytime that you get a gun strike, your weapon's going to be immediately cooled, which I love the Heavy Bolter. However, sometimes whenever you are waiting for your weapon to cool down, sometimes it's very easy to get overwhelmed by a bunch of enemies and you start taking damage. However, as long as you can master the combat system, specifically the parries, you're going to be able to get those gun strikes off and immediately start re-engaging targets again. Then we have Storm's Dominion, which I think is going to be fun. So it is the Heroic Thunderhammer, and fully charged attacks leave behind a shock grenade effect. I'm actually really looking forward to trying this out with the Bulwark, just because of some of the perks that already the Bulwark has that increase shock damage. So I think it'll be very interesting to run it on that. I know the Thunderhammer has been available for the Bulwark now for quite some time, I just never really fell in love with it. I do love it on the assault class, but I think this might make me want to run it and give it another try on the bulwark. And then finally, we do have Death's Grasp, which is going to be the heroic power fist. This is another one that seems pretty cool. So performing a finisher marks a nearby Majoris level enemy or higher for a gun strike, which I think is going to be really awesome to try. And I think that this is going to pair pretty well with some of the perks available to both the assault and the bulwark, because there already is a perk that will allow you to restore armor off a non-finisher gun strike. So this will be a nice way to kind of help keep your armor up if you are struggling with that. Now, there is going to be a little bit of a trade-off. Your light attack damage is going to increase by 200%. However, your charged attack damage is going to decrease by 50. Now, there is already a fair bit of perks that you can use to up your melee damage, so I will be interested to see how this performs. And real quick, while we do it, I do want to show that Saber here has been paying attention. Also, I just want to throw out real quick that whenever I was on here earlier, I did notice some of my perks, specifically for the Chainsword and the Power Fist, did reset. So that is something to be aware of. Stuff might disappear, but just something to keep in mind. But the reason that I wanted to go back here real quick and show off the weapons is, so as you can see, one of the big issues people had with a lot of the first wave of heroic weapons, specifically the melee ones, is their defensive style was all balanced. They have listened. We do have a little bit of a change. So with Storm's Dominion, its defense is going to be fencing. So that's actually another reason why I'm really looking forward to trying this. Compared to the standard fencing, it seems like a pretty good trade-off. You're not losing anything in terms of strength or speed, but you are going to be gaining some additional cleaving potential, which is going to be huge. And then as we look over here at the Power Fist, it is also within the fencing category. So if we compare that to, now I do have the block version attached. Let's go ahead and throw on the fencing one here just so you can get a 1-to-1. It is going to be just a tiny bit slower. However, you are going to receive some additional strength to it. So you'll lose 2 in speed, gain 2 in strength. Cleavage is still the same, but if you do notice that you struggle using blocked or balanced weapons, at least now you'll still be able to use some of the heroic variants of those particular ones. Me personally, block Power Fist is just god tier. If you haven't given it a try, or you've been afraid to mess around with any style outside or just block in general, definitely something worthwhile to check into. Now then, over on the mission side, we do have Mission 11 now, or Operation 11, I'm sorry. Reclamation. This is going to feature the Tyranids, which I am very excited for because I do feel that Tyranids play so much better than Chaos. Granted, Vortex was a phenomenal operation. I'm glad that we have it, but I am perfectly happy to go back to smashing the Xenos because they know it. It's their fault they weren't made in the God Emperor's image. Now, coming over into the stratagems, there has been over 40 different combat conditions that have been added. We'll just take a look at the ones that are going to be on screen available right now. And also the weekly stratagems are going to be on Obelisk, everybody's least favorite level. Perfect way to bring us a bunch of great content and then slap us in the face with that. But it's going to be really interesting when we get to it. So, some of the new conditions: Unshaken, you are not going to lose control upon taking heavy hits and you cannot be knocked back. We also have YOLO, or you only live once if you're maybe a little bit older. You will not respawn after death, so permadeath here. That's going to be very interesting for some players out there. And then the Laraman cells, which is actually going to passively restore your health. It is going to be at a slow rate, but I do think over the course of an entire operation, it is going to be something that's noticeable. Plus, I do think for this particular stratagem, I think that's going to be a nice pairing because if you do struggle, it's going to kind of give you that chance to stay alive. Next, coming down to Termination here, we have Empathy, which is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but I think it's going to make it interesting. So 100% of damage is shared among all players. So you will find out who is the weakest link on your team, because that damage is going to get shared to everyone. Plus, we also have Migraine, which I think this is just going to be a really fun stratagem. I was actually really glad to see them add in a lot more kind of fun and laid back ones. Granted, there are some other ones that are going to make some of the challenges a little rough, but Migraine headshot kills explode the enemy, dealing damage to others nearby. To me, again, that's going to be really fun. Now, whenever we come over here to Inferno, a couple new ones here. We have Hazardous Environment. Enemies spread toxic or corruption zones, which, as you can see right there, it's going to depend on the faction. Toxic for Tyranid, corruption Chaos. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Then we have enemy sighted. So range kills restore armor based on the enemy threat level. I think this is actually going to be something that's going to make some of these runs really easy to do, because you're going to help keep your armor level up, making it a lot harder for you to take actual health damage. So again, glad to see them even throwing that on some of the hard stuff to encourage players to try out some of these higher difficulties. In surplus, you can carry twice as much ammunition, and equipment spawns are doubled. Then we come down to Reclamation. This also did make the daily stratagem for hard. So we have Squad Unity, which is also going to be part of Obelisk there for the weekly stratagem. Now, for those of you that did not get to experience the original Lethal, now you can go back and relive that nightmare. So if you do not maintain a very close proximity, very straightforward, to your squad members, armor and contested health restoration is disabled. So this is really going to encourage you to stay, for lack of a better term, nut to butt with your friends there. That way you're not going down and dying. And again, that is very reminiscent to when Lethal was first introduced. However, that whole mechanic was removed rather quickly, just because a lot of players found it to be too hard. There were some people that were calling for it to come back specifically to Lethal because they felt that it made it too easy. But now we get to run it on Absolute. So for those difficulty junkies, you have something. We've already talked about the other two. And now, whenever we come down to Vox Liberatus, a couple of other ones that are here. Micro Reactor Breach. Whenever a squad member dies, they deal significant damage to other squad members around them. To me, this is kind of reminiscent from what you see in some of the books whenever certain Space Marine characters, whenever they get blasted a little too heavy, their reactor pack just blows up, deals a significant amount of damage to everyone. Now, this does say specifically squad members, so we'll have to see if that does affect regular foes as well. Speaking of foes, we also have Clever Foe, which is a small number of Majoris level enemies can be shielded from all damage for a short time. Essentially, imagine the little shield that the Zoranthropes get, and now just attach it to Majoris. It's definitely going to be more on the difficulty side, and I can see this at points just making you want to put your controller through the screen. And the only other new one, or I'm sorry, there are two new ones here. First, we have Sharpshooter, which is range damage greater than 10 meters. We had something for 10 meters and in. Now we have something for 10 meters and out. So this is really going to help the snipers and let them shine. It's going to be increased by 75%. And the last new one that we can see, at least for today, keep in mind there's over 40 of them, is going to be Warp Storm, which a Psychic Storm periodically hits. But overall, I think the update is pretty good. Again, it is a little bit on the smaller side, and for the amount of time we had to wait, there's part of me that's a little let down, but there's also another part of me that is just excited that we have something new to play with. And again, there were some pretty clear examples within some of the updates that we got to see, whether it's the heroic weapons or some of the cosmetics that Saber is listening to the community. They might be churning out slow, but at least they are listening, which compared to some other companies out there in the whole gaming sphere, I'll take that. But that's all for this video. As always, thank you for watching. And tomorrow, or Thursday, so Thanksgiving Day, when you're stuffing your fat ass, you'll be able to watch my fat ass play the new operation that's released. This will be going up Wednesday, the day that maybe you're watching it. I don't know, maybe you need a break on Thanksgiving, but we will have all the content showcase over the next 2 days. But again, thank you for watching, and we will